We build it, you demolish it. The legendary Homewrecker Burrito. Come build yours today with 20 plus fresh ingredients.
First online order, 10% off. Promo code ONLINE.
Hi, welcome to Over the Boards. I'm your host, Delaney Kearns, here once again with IcePack head coach Tim Healy. Tim,
good to be here.
I feel like I say it every time. It's been a while since we chatted. How are
we
you?
need to do this more next year.
Yeah, it's like every 2 months we just pick it right back up. But we have a lot to discuss today, kind of how the season wrapped up and then what we can look forward to in the postseason. So I'm really excited. I would like to mention that Over the Boards is sponsored by Moe's. You can order online at moescatersraleigh.com or call 919-999-3999. All right, Coach, well, we're just going to pick right back up where we started,
Sure.
which I believe, if I'm not wrong, was the Pink Out game, which was for breast cancer awareness. How did that go? What is that like to, be sponsored by something like that, kind of doing that with the Zeta sorority on campus? What does that mean for the organization?
Well, I think it was first of all, it was a great night. We had a capacity crowd. The jersey sales were awesome with it. It was kind of a co-sponsored with the Play for K Foundation, with the KEL Foundation and Zeta. So I think, the following Monday was the big Play for K across women's and men's basketball.
Yes.
And I think, first, obviously the Jimmy V Foundation has done so much for cancer research, but, I don't want to call it a sad chapter, but it is sad that KEL and Jim Valvano aren't here. So you talk about two legendary coaches from the 80s, both passing away prematurely for cancer. And the V Foundation gets so much publicity.
Yeah.
I think it's great now that we're seeing the Play for K begin to take off. And that's a homegrown foundation for us. I mean, you see UConn with their women's basketball team across, but at the end of the day, Play for K really originates out of the NC State community. So we're honored to be a part of that. Zeta has done so much work in the area too. So, outstanding to have Zeta support in that. And, it was the jersey sale, obviously, by the way, they're still on sale at Red and White, so still proceeds go for Play for K for it. But it was to see event come together, and a lot of people, they'll do pink outs and the teams will come out with a jersey, but to have so much of the crowd was in that.
Yeah.
We had the pink T-shirts. We had it was a great night. Of course, the game was great. Virginia Tech with an ACC rival. We were able to pull that one out. So it was a great atmosphere. Crowd was into it. Had the band there, of course.
Yeah,
so
it's always exciting.
Yeah, it was terrific. It was a terrific night. For each foundation, we raised, I think, about just around $1,000, which is great.
Yeah.
So over $2,000 on the night. Beat the UNC Duke Pink for tonight too, and fun.
Just had to add that in there.
It's not a competition, but it's a competition for a good cause.
Yes,
so,
it is. And I do think it's a very honorable way to keep both of them alive and remember who they were and their impact. But aside from that, speaking from a game perspective, like you said, it was a good game for the IcePack, and then the next day, not so much. I feel like we've talked about all season pretty much capitalizing at home and then not so much away. Where do you see that come into play?
Well, and it goes a step further too. When you look at our losses this year, and we'll get to our regionals loss in a second, every game but two was one goal, or if it was more than one goal, it was an empty netter, right? So I think we just, we found more of an ability to win close ones at home, and a lot of the road losses were in overtime. So not a lot. So there's, that's something that we have to really analyze and look into the off season. Certainly close, certainly on the doorstep. Some of it is our 3-on-3 strategy in overtime, looking at, is it a conditioning thing? What is it exactly?
Yeah.
But, or in the flips, because if you turn half of those one-goal losses and half of those road losses into wins, suddenly, we have a first day bye at regionals.
Oh, yeah.
You might be competing
Different
for a
record,
2 seed.
yeah.
You might be competing for a 2 seed.
Yeah.
So that, that's definitely part of the off-season analysis to figure out, that trend was there, and we have to solve that for next. At home, we're brilliant.
Yeah, I did think that was interesting. I was looking at the roster just before you came, and the record, it was like overtime lost away, overtime. I was like, there seems to be a trend here.
It is. Yeah, I think, what did we lost to Kentucky at home.
Yeah.
And I think that was that our only home loss this year?
I want to say there wasn't more than 2.
I mean, UNC, the end of the second game, we lost at PNC, which is, so you kind of do need to count that one.
Yeah.
But even that, it's, I think that might have been our only
It
true
might have been,
home
yeah.
loss. UNC, there's, they're not traveling as much, but Kentucky might have been our only true home loss of the year.
Yeah, and speaking of UNC, we picked back up with them at Invisalign, which for viewers who don't know, that game was cut short due to an injury of an Ice Pack player, Cade Cox. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, first off, that was, at the time that it happened, it was a 2-2 game, and we'd raced out to a 2-0 lead, and then they tied it up in the third. And then a pretty serious injury happened to Cade Cox, and actually it was right in the corner where
it was. Right there. It was not a good sight.
Yeah, actually, you were on the camera for that. Actually, you might not want this credit, but you really caught a good angle of it, and were even able to use some of that angle, one of the doctors at Duke and looking at that and piecing the puzzle together. So thank you for that. I know I'm just doing my job.
Yeah.
But it was scary.
Yeah.
To put it in really layman's terms, what happened with Cade was when he went into the boards, he had almost a version of what you call spinal shock with how he went in. And it has to do with how the muscles tighten around the spine. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not a doctor. And then he also had whiplash from when he went in. And then he had a pretty, all concussions are severe. And we like to say there's only severe concussions.
Yeah.
But, this was on the scale pretty high up there. So he had all 3 of those things going on at once. And when you have the spinal shock aspect of it, you don't have all your feeling, and you do have tingling. And so it was a pretty scary scene. Fortunately, kind of once the muscles relax and release, you do gain all of the feelings. So, by 1 a.m. we knew that Cade was in good shot, a good spot from the spinal, but he was still, and he's still actually battling the effects of it. Right? We're over a month out.
Yeah.
If we were still playing, he wouldn't be back yet. I mean, so that just kind of tells you where he was with that one. He's going to make a full recovery, but they're students first, and so. It does have a bit of an academic impact, and there's no doubt about it. So, but yeah, it was pretty serious, but I will say this, everyone handled it, could not have handled it better.
That was going to ask you how it was handled and things like that. Was that?
We had our trainer, there was, UNC had their doctors, so between the 2 of them, the rink staff, and then the way the UNC players handled it, they had momentum at that time in that game too. But it wasn't, it was scary, and I think being in that corner, you saw how everyone kind of gathered around their families, girlfriends, player, and so it was definitely, and I think, we talk about this from a school psychology standpoint. Really 15 to 23-year-old males kind of have this invincibility complex to them, and when they're faced with something like that, from a psychological standpoint, it does challenge, particularly, a 20, 21-year-old male in an entirely different way than they're used to, and for good reason.
Yeah.
And so, to work through that and sort through that, it was the right thing to do to stop the game at that point. We were both schools were in a spot where it wasn't going to impact playoffs if we weren't able to finish it. We did finish it, but we were in a pretty good spot, and it was the right thing to do to let the people do their work and do their job to make sure that Cade was well. And again, the whole community. The support, the support we got
on social media, I saw all the hockey teams.
Well, it was, and then the text messages that came in.
I'm sure.
You know, and the other thing is, shows you how wide this broadcast. When we were in Ohio at regionals, an Ohio parent came up to me and said, "Hey, we were watching that night and watching when it happened. You know, and they're asking about Cade. So just, I mean, it was all over the place. We heard from the Indiana coach. We heard, you know, from a coach out in Utah. We obviously, you know, the coaches we're closest with, be it Liberty or wherever. And, you know, the whole hockey community came together. And, you know, there was an odd feeling of almost, I don't want to say guilt. Like, by one, we knew he was going to be okay. And you're having all this rolling in. It's like, okay, now we need to get something out to let the community at large know we're good and we're going to, you know, we're going to make it through this. But it was the support of the hockey community that night was impressive, and it meant a lot to myself, our program, and Cade and his family.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a great game before that, and then, you know, then we picked it back up.
We did.
In PNC.
and you know, a couple things about that night. You know, first off, it was a weird outcome, right? Because you're playing the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
UNC starting on a power play. Then, you know, they don't score and we go into overtime. That 2 minutes in overtime, we were all over them. Even their power play, we had more shots shorthanded than they had. We go to overtime, we actually hit 2 posts.
Yeah.
I think there were a couple times the arena thought the game was game, set, match. They come back, they get 1 shot, rebound goes out somewhere, you know, on floor, and Zajac puts it away. And, you know, as a coach, you're like, put that out, focus on how well you played. I mean, we dominated and controlled, you know, those 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And, you know, on one hand, it's like, okay, well, maybe the outcome was kind of fair for UNC because they had the momentum at the end of Friday night, whatever.
Maybe.
But on the other hand, it's like, wow, we really controlled that. And it was like, okay, how is our team going to rebound and respond to it?
I was going to ask, what is the turnover like from that, and then be like, okay, clean slate, let's do it again?
I think it was actually weirder for UNC because they, and I talked to them a little bit about this. It's like they didn't get to celebrate an overtime goal like they normally would. Right,
it's
the
like
dog pile on the ice. For our guys, it was like, all right, our guys almost treated, all right, that's the appetizer, didn't go as well as we wanted. We still got a point out of the game going overtime. Now let's win this game here and focus on, hey, we just played really well for 5 minutes. We play that well for 60 minutes, we're going to come out on, you know, that was like a short sample size, right? Weird things happen in a short sample, right? And almost like, you know, they're smart kids, like they're thinking about that. Over 60 minutes, if you play that way, you're going to come out on top. And that's exactly what they transitioned to. And you saw that, I mean, I think we scored about 4 minutes into it, and we were just, and Lucas Brown, even though we got 6 on him in the game, he really made some good saves in that first period, or else it could have been 3-4 after the first period. We were dialed in that night. You know, the crowd was dialed in, and it was. I was really proud of the mental resiliency that the guy showed from that, you know, shall we say, the appetizer to the main event.
Right.
And, you know, the other thing I want to say, too, is we had 6,299 people there on a Monday night.
Yeah.
You also had women's basketball on their, you know, playing Louisville, sold out, Reynolds Coliseum, 5,500. You know, probably 4,500 of the people at PNC were NC State fans, maybe more. So you're really talking about, you know, you're pushing over 11,000 NC State fans within a 3-mile area on a Monday night in February, which is amazing. And so, you know, NC State community, that really speaks to you all and the turnout for both teams. You know, one team didn't take it away from the other.
No.
Women's basketball got their sellout. We got over 6,000, which is really our goal.
Which goes to show how many fans there really are.
Yeah, and passionate fans. And, you know, the last couple of times at PNC, we haven't given our fans what they deserve, but I felt like we did that night. And, you know, and I think in that game, you know, I think all year we felt like we were the better team. We won one in overtime. They won one in overtime. They, you know, they won a close one, you know, at, you know, the first PNC game. And I think it was nice to get some separation on them in a game.
Yeah.
And I think it was also really nice for the seniors to enjoy the moment
I was
out
going to
there.
ask about that.
Garrett Arini has played more games at PNC than anyone else.
That's crazy.
But he had never scored a goal at PNC.
Okay.
And he goes out with a hat trick.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so those types of things. And, you also continue the hot run that Addison Lawrence had been on and had really been on all semester.
Yeah, we talked about that last time we were here.
And he even went up levels.
Yeah.
But, we had 6, so, we didn't need as much. But, it really all came together that night. The power play was humming, the penalty kill. And, PNC, what makes PNC so loud and what makes it the loudest house in the NHL, and I was talking about this with my daughter, we were just at a Predators game in Nashville, we were way up top, is PNC's lower bowl is so steep. So when those Wolfpack chants come at you, or in Canes, it's so steep that it goes right at you.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it so loud. And so you could really feel it in there that night. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to go to a quick commercial break, but we'll be right back in a minute.
We build it, you demolish it. The legendary Homewrecker Burrito. Come build yours today with 20 plus fresh ingredients.
First online order, 10% off. Promo code ONLINE.
All right, we're back. Now we're going to move a little bit into the playoffs of the season, which were very exciting, I'd say so.
They were.
And I think they went pretty well, beginning with the quarterfinal game against Virginia Tech. This was a late game, 10-15.
Well, and
in Winston.
And it started, and by the time the puck dropped, it was actually 10:45, almost 11. And that was, I'm going to be diplomatic. That really put us behind the eight ball for the weekend.
I was going to say, how do you work after that? I would be tired. How do you get the momentum to go out there and be like, all right, we got to play a game?
Well, the game's the easy part. You're fired up to play.
Okay.
They're college kids. We practice at 10:45. The game's the easy part. It's a playoff game. It's a rival in Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
They'd beaten us in overtime the game before. So it's kind of the rubber match, right? Game 3. Credit to Tech. They've played really well. They played really well. Brian Key, their goalie, is always dialed in. But we, it just had one of those things like our guys weren't going to lose that game. Nick Shook, we're not a bunch of guys that are built on accolades. They don't care if they got Player of the Year or this or that, which Arini did, or Rookie of the Year, stuff like that, or MVP. But Nick Shook kind of took a little bit of a slight to him not getting Freshman of the Year, which a Virginia Tech player. Nick Shook didn't even know that was such an award until it got presented before the game.
I wanted it.
And he was like, not so much that he wanted, he's like, I'm better than that guy. And their guy put up a lot of points and is probably deserving of it. I think we play a stronger schedule, so I think if you were to do the side-by-side of the points, but Nick, got a little chip on his shoulder, and he came out to play, and so he netted a couple, and our defensive, Labrizzi and Thronson, and you saw Jackson. By the way, Jackson Cowan the last 2 months of the season went to a whole new level, and you had Addison again in their backbone. That was just a game those guys weren't going to lose.
Yeah.
And so that was a great start to the weekend. But you talk about the time, right? It's a playoff game. You're jacked up. You're excited. The problem is after it, right? You don't just go home and go to bed.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was the problem. So by the time guys are in bed asleep, it's almost 3 a.m.
Yeah.
That's where the problem is. And you can say, hey, you can sleep the whole day because we didn't play again until 6:30, but your body clock's going to wake you up, right? There's a natural rhythm to things. And I think you saw that play out in our loss against Rowan, where again we got out to a 2-0 lead. The game kind of turns on we do video replay at Winston, and it was the right call, but I really think it's the wrong intention of the rule. Okay. So it wasn't an offsides call. So basically, if the puck hits, there's no glass by the bench, and if you're going to the zone and the puck hits someone on the bench, there's supposed to be a whistle, and it's dead. We flipped the puck in the zone. I certainly didn't notice it. The Rowan coach noticed it. Okay. One of their players was hanging over the boards, and it hits their glove, and the whistle, and we go in and we score 30 seconds later. And we go up 3-0 at that point and probably win that game. He reviews it, it goes back. I think that it's the right rule. It was the right application of the rule, but it's their players hanging their glove in play, right? Like
I'm actually not aware of this rule.
You know, so like it wasn't didn't hit someone on the bench standing back, because then that's technically out of play.
Yeah.
That kid's glove is kind of hanging over the bench in the review. He's in play. And technically, yes, that should be a whistle, but like they got rewarded. Now, every team does this, by the way. So I'm not saying like, oh, state would never.
This is like a trick I didn't know.
But yeah, well, that's my point. Like it's not really within the spirit of the rule.
Okay.
And again, but if I'm the rowing coach, I challenge that. Yeah. Like, you know, Brian's a great guy and a great coach. So then we don't get that third. Yeah. And then we go into the second and we can't really stretch it. And then you almost saw in the third, we just hit a wall.
Yeah.
And I mean, everyone there is watching it. And I think that's where the night before, you know, not going to sleep, you know, they played the early game. So they had over 24 hours
it's a longer rest
right? We didn't have, I mean, they were over 24. We were under 24.
Yeah.
And so we were 15. That's a big difference, right? They're in bed at a normal time. They're eating their meals at a normal time. And I think that came back. And I think the other thing is, I think both of us knew, with no disrespect to UNC Wilmington, who had a great last month of the season, we kind of felt like that was the championship game. Like whoever won that one was going to go on and win it. And Rowan did the next day.
Yeah.
You know, credit to them for coming back and keeping that until we kind of, you know, we were kind of a boxer that got tired and dropped their guard in the third and they knocked us out in overtime. So credit to them, but that's where the late start the night before came back to get us.
Interesting. I guess I didn't think, I thought, you know, late game is tiring, but it's actually the next day where it really sets in that's going to affect the players. And then, you know, IcePack took a trip up to Ohio for the semifinals, which did send the IcePack home with 2 wins and a loss, where they ended out the season with a 2-5 loss to Indiana. There was a lot of aspects going up there. You'd already seen teams that you'd pretty much, for the most part, seen all of them before earlier in the season. What goes into play there?
Well, what's interesting is, because of our strength of schedule, we had played every team there except for 2, Ohio and Miami.
Yes.
And the way it was going to break out, we could only end up playing one of those 2 with the bracketing. And for people that don't know how ACHA postseason works, so it's like our version of the NCAA tournament.
Okay.
You have regionals and then you have nationals. So if you think about a 64-team field in basketball, you know, you have your 3 2-game weekends in college basketball. What we basically have is 1 3-game weekend, and then you go, our Final Four has 16 at it, and you do pool play. We do true regions. 4 teams advance out of each region.
Okay.
The top 2 ranked teams at the end of the regular season, they get a pass to nationals. So you're bringing 12 teams to regions, 12 teams to the regionals, and 2 teams go on.
Okay.
With that, 4 teams get a bye past the first day. We did not get a bye past the first day. We have to go 3. We have to go 3-0. Everything is one and done.
Yeah.
You do reseed after every day. And so in our case, if the seeds had held, UNC was 1 spot ahead of us fractionally, and then we were, you know, right behind it. UNC got upset by the last seed, Penn, 8-6. So, you know, Penn went for the 2-point conversion late to win that one. So that meant we moved up, which, you know, Kentucky was a 1 team that had been kind of a real thorn of our. They're the only team that's beaten us by more than 2. Mm-hmm. If the seeds had held, we would have played Kentucky.
Yeah.
So UNC loses before the game before, so I'm like, okay, this is an opportunity here. We go out, we play Rowan. Our guys were pumped to play Rowan. They wanted that rematch. You know, again, they felt, you know, normal sleep. We went up the night before. It was actually great. We practiced, got on the bus, went up, got in a reasonable time, you know, had Addison starting again.
Yeah.
And the first period was actually one of our worst periods all season. Rowan's rink is really strange. I mean, not Rowan's. Ohio's rink is really strange. There's almost no neutral zone.
Okay.
Offensive zone's actually a little bit bigger, and behind the net is a little bit bigger. Credit to Rowan, they adjusted to it faster than we did. We were horrible in the first period. The only reason we weren't down 3-0 after the first period was Addison. Credit to the players, they adjusted after the first period. We went in as coach said, hey, we want to change. They adjusted. I think we got 2 or 3 goals in the second, so we're up either 2-0 or 3-0 after the second. Stretched it out to, and remember, we never were able to get that third goal to stretch it a week before.
Yeah.
We got out to 3-0. Rowan did get one back late, but at 3-0, that means you got to get 4 to beat us. In the way Lawrence was playing, that wasn't going to happen on that night. So that was that was just, it felt good to kind of get the Rowan monkey off our back. We'd also lost our 3 last regional games in a row. So that felt good to get that off our back. And then with UNC losing, that kind of reshaped stuff where we weren't playing Kentucky. We felt good about that. But on the flip side, you're playing the host team, Ohio. And remember, it's a weird rink. That's Ohio's home rink.
Yeah.
And that one was, again, so we went back to Addison. It was his first time making back-to-back starts since January of 2020.
Wow.
That's a
long
time ago. So he answers the bell again. We race out to a 3-0 lead going into about 12 minutes left in the third. We're playing fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, one of our best games of the year. Drew Breshingham gets a breakaway, and we're still not sure if he hit the back bar or if he hit the crossbar. I was not a great goalie. I know the sound of pucks going by me and hitting bars. The crossbar and the back bar makes a different noise. It sounded more like a back bar noise. Trust me, I'm an expert on pucks going by me and hitting posts. So, but whatever, right? It's not a goal. We're still up 3. We still should be in good control of this game. They get 2. I'm like, so we went from 4-0 to 3-2 in about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit white knuckle.
difference.
That is a big difference. Now, the guys knew they were playing well. It was, what you saw, and you saw this at UNC too, they trusted, at PNC, they trusted each other. They trusted that they were playing well. And Scott Daniel got a big goal with about 5 minutes left to put it up 4-2. And so that was a great win, another great team win. We go on to Indiana.
Yep.
And, Indiana, they had a pretty easy semifinal game. They played Penn, beat them like 14-5.
Wow.
Yeah. So, they played earlier in Indiana. We played them earlier in the year, and it's 3-1. But I'll be honest, they really controlled play in that game.
Okay.
It didn't feel that close. We were there. This one, though, we come out, we run an opening face-off play to perfection. We hit the post. And it's like, ugh. But that's okay. We settle in.
Yeah.
Games back and forth. We're controlling. And it was one of these games where we'd kind of control 5 minutes. They'd control 5 minutes. And we probably controlled the first 5. The next 5, they controlled the next 5. They got 2. We go back to controlling, and we actually get it back to 2-1 at the end of the first. And we're feeling great about our play. There's a lot of hockey to go. So then we get the second. They stretch it to 3-1 on a power play goal. Isaac Toyer, who's played, a second semester. He's, we're talking about Isaac, but we're talking about Addison, but Isaac's second semester, 2.2 goals against, had about, I want to say like a 918, 920 save percentage. So he'd been really good second semester too. We were concerned about Isaac playing 3 games in a row because he hadn't played 3 games in a row since 2019. And part of the reason he stopped playing was some major hip issues. So we're kind of monitoring that.
Yeah.
So Isaac's playing well. Isaac gets knocked out of the game. And actually we had scored to make it 3-2 when Isaac gets knocked out of the game. And we got to go back to Addison, and we don't know where he didn't even know how his body would respond. Again, talking 2019, that's 5 years ago. So he wasn't sure how his body would respond. Fortunately, he shuts the door, doesn't give up another goal the rest of the game. We get down to the 3-minute mark, 2:30 mark. We pull our goalie. They got 2 empty netters and seals our fate. But we talk about the regionals games the last couple of years where we left the ice feeling we left stuff on the table. We had 6 regular lineup guys out. We talk about Cade Cox's injury against UNC.
Yeah.
We also lost Chase Williams to an MCL injury that game. We lost Cam Lohr to a torn MCL and ACL that game. We'd already had Ricky Frosch out, already had Gavea out, already had Phil Bailey out.
Mm-hmm.
For the tournament the week before, due to a cut on his foot, we had Thomas McEnany out.
Yep.
So we were to the point where we had no extra forwards to put in the line. Like you're playing 3 games, 3 days in a row. There are no fresh legs to put in that forward group, or really in general. So the guys emptied the tank that weekend. We didn't get the result we really wanted, but as a coach, we got all the compete I could have hoped for and asked for. And I think that, and so we're pretty young. So going into the off season, that's something to build off of too.
Yeah. Well, talking about postseason, off-season, I've been seeing some really exciting things on the socials about a golf tournament, an alumni game. Can you kind of tell us what's going on there, how people can get involved?
Yeah, so we've put together a bit what I would almost call like an Ice Pack Alumni Weekend. So it starts off Friday the 19th of April at 1 o'clock with the Eagle Ridge Country Club with our 3rd annual golf tournament. You can sign up on icepackhockey.com. All proceeds go to support the Ice Pack. We'll have some great prizes, a chance to win money on a hole-in-one. We have we've had some pretty low scores and some pretty good golfers out there. But again, we'll have current players, past players, alums, friends. It's a great afternoon and it supports us. The next day, the reason why we're not doing the alumni game on Saturday is UNC and NC State baseball actually play at the Doak on Saturday. So we didn't want to go up against that. We want people, if you're coming into town, go to that game. And then Sunday, we finish that off at 11 a.m. With the alumni game. Again, you can register for that at icepackhockey.com. So it's going to be a fun weekend. If you are doing the alumni game, if you're doing the golf tournament, want to do the alumni game, contact us through the web and let us know. There's actually a code that will give you a discount on the alumni game. But again, all proceeds go to us, and it's going to be a fun weekend, a chance to connect with some old friends and help ensure some program stability going in the future.
Yeah, that's great. So definitely come out to that. For you and for the program as a whole, what are you kind of looking forward to right now in the off season? Prospects, things like that, the program?
So our schedule's finished for next year. 19 home games next year.
Wow.
So get excited for that. We have, and this is where we've actually been working with UNC and bringing some new opponents in because then they can play 2 solid games. So we have Michigan State as a new opponent coming in next year. Bowling Green's a new opponent coming in. Army. UNH, University of New Hampshire, so great home slate next year. So look for those season tickets to come out. The return of the Stephen Russell tournament, an in-season tournament that used to be hosted here. That's UNH will be at it, Bowling Green, Louisville, Wilmington, and UNC. That's going to be in mid-October. Really excited for that one. We don't know yet, but we want to put a bid in on regionals, and we've kind of a little bit of the front runner to get that because people are excited to come down here. So hopefully we can pull that off. So the schedule looks fantastic next year. And then the other big thing is recruiting right now, right? So we have 2 commits already. We have a guy that is either a point per game or over a point per game guy, local guy, Jackson Strong. Well, no, Braden Strong, Jackson Strong. We're going to have 2 Strongs next year. Can never be too strong. Right? Bad dad joke number 1. So he's playing for the USPHL Junior Canes. He's coming next year. A great setup man. I think he's leading their team in assists. And then we have a top D pairing coming from them by the name of Jackson Weglars. Jackson lived here. They was born in Vermont. They lived here, went back to Vermont, went to New Hampton for prep school, played He's just, he's had enough of the North. He wants to stay down here.
I get that.
And he's a guy that has had some offers to go up into the NAL, the North American Hockey League, but he wants to get his collegiate career started with us. It's kind of fun. I actually coached his sister first a long time ago, so that's kind of fun. And then, we also, probably next few weeks, we're really excited about some other recruits working their way through the admissions office. I think this has a chance to be a pretty special recruiting class coming in next year as well.
Awesome.
Because people forget, Frozen Finley happened after the application deadline. So Frozen Finley helped us yield some kids and make the choice to come here. A kid like Aiden Brenner, for example. It didn't generate any new applications because of the timing of it. So we're seeing that quality application jump now. So the quality of applications we're seeing, we have a NAL guy, NCDC, EHL, so all higher end junior leagues, which is exciting. And those are leagues where guys like Cade Cox came out of this year, Andrew Thronson. So those are the type of leagues we're pulling guys in from again, and those are some of our best freshmen this year.
That's great. Well, I'm excited for what next season will bring. Lastly, I kind of wanted to ask you if there were any individuals behind the scenes, in front of the scenes that you would like to thank for the postseason. anything like that?
Well, I think always, to you and the rest of the broadcast crew from PackTV, it's really noted that we have the best broadcast, period. And we get complimented for it on the road. So thank you for you all. We gave our trainer Dylan a little bit more work than we'd like to this year.
Yeah.
So a big thank you to him.
Yeah.
Then our crew that's in the box, the scorers box all game, Rick Daniel,
Yep.
you got Pat, you got Preston. So you have that crew in there, and of course Wade, who started with us, who he doesn't need to keep doing this with us. He's a cult hero in the announcing, and he's always there.
Yeah.
So appreciate him coming back. Then I think you also have to give for our seniors and the guys. We've talked enough about Garrett, so we can put him on the side right now. But just kidding, Garrett. But our outgoing president Jackson Cowan, and we talked about his play, but people don't realize how much time off the ice. So you have him, Luke Jagalski, who was a guy who I didn't know if he was going to make the team last year when he came here, but really became an indispensable part about the team and our team culture. You've got Drew Breshingham, who one of our best penalty killers of all time. We don't quite know what Ricky Frosch is going to do yet next year, so we'll see how that plays out. I hate when you get in spot listening because I feel like I am missing a senior.
I think you hit the
No,
ball.
I think, because it's the question of Ricky and then Eric Daniel for his time with us too, and it's given us a lot of deep goaltending core. And then, our staff, Jess Hart, best equipment manager in the game, my assistants, Eric Muir and Alex Rosetto. They're not in it for the money. We'll leave it at that. In it for the love of the game.
Yeah.
Missing a lot of time from their families. So,
Yeah.
I can't say enough how much I appreciate them. And Wolfpack Nation, all the support that you guys give us. It's a lot of fun now. It used to be if I was out and I saw someone in Ice Pack here, I probably knew them.
Yeah.
Now you go around.
No, I see people all over campus, and I'm like, wait, who are they?
I got a text I was in Nashville this weekend with my daughter, and I got a text from someone at the Tin Roof, and Jay Beretti, who does some great bar shows, had an Ice Pack T-shirt on.
I saw
I've
that.
never met Jay. Jay, I think he's in alum upstate. I'm not sure, but definitely didn't play hockey for us. I've never met him, and he's up there with that, with the sun's out, guns out with it. So,
I know.
But that, that support means so much to us when we see it far and wide, and it's fun now. I'll see someone and like, hey, now, it used to be if I said hi to you, and you knew who I was because you're somehow close to the program. Now it's kind of fun and they have no idea.
No,
that
it's just a fan.
That jersey came to my house. I packed it up and shipped it from my house, and you have no idea. So I love that. And then the Red and White Shop and the rest of our sponsors couldn't do it without them as well.
Yeah, well, for me, I just want to thank you for your time coming to our Over the Boards.
Pleasure.
They've been amazing. Thank you to all the fans that support PackTV and Ice Pack as well, and we'll see you next season.
And go Pack.